My fiancée looked me in the eyes and said, I can't build a future with a man my family doesn't respect. 3 days earlier, I had bought the ring. I never thought a sentence could split my life into a before and an after, but that one did. And yeah, I know how dramatic that sounds, but when you spent 5 years imagining a future with someone, only to watch them walk towards someone else's shiny world like you were a stepping stone, the drama feels earned. I'm Daniel, 29, a civil infrastructure contractor out in New Mexico. Not glamorous work, not the kind of job people brag about at cocktail parties, but it keeps cities moving and it pays honestly. My hands are always scraped up, my boots never clean, and my truck wheezes when the AC kicks in. But it's my life. And for a long time, I thought it was enough of the woman I loved, Emily. Emily grew up in a world I only ever saw on TV. Her family owned a chain of high-end wellness clinics in the Southwest, Santa Fe, Scottsdale, Sedona, all places where retirees drink $14 green juices and talk about energy alignment. Her father was the kind of man who wore a suit even on Sundays. Her mother the kind who scheduled Botox maintenance the way normal people schedule oil changes. They came from money, married into money, invested money, breathed money. But the wild part? When I first met Emily, she didn't seem like them. I met her in a night photography class at the community college. I come straight from a 10-hour shift rerouting a busted water main downtown, still dusted in dirt and concrete powder. She had this sleek camera rig worth more than my entire monthly income. She asked me if she could borrow my spare pen. It was the cheapest thing I owned, and somehow handing it to her made me feel like I had just been seen for the first time by someone who didn't care that I was covered in dust or exhausted or just a construction guy trying to finish a certification. We talked in the parking lot for hours that night. She asked questions, real ones. She wanted to know about storm drainage design, about load-bearing calculations, about how infrastructure tied a city together. No one had ever asked me about my work like that. It felt like she saw value in me long before I ever saw it in myself. That version of her, the one who made me feel like I mattered, that's the version I held on to for far too long. Meeting her family was where everything started cracking. I still remember the first dinner at their adobe-style mansion overlooking a wide valley. Her father shook my hand like he was evaluating the structural integrity of a bridge he wasn't sure would pass inspection. Her mother smiled in that polite, frozen way people do when they're mentally listing all the reasons you don't belong. And then there was Tyler. Yeah, him. The family's golden child, although he wasn't related to them. He was just the son of her father's business partner. He'd gone to Duke, then Wharton, then apparently straight into her parents' good graces. They talked about him like he was a generational talent. And I'm not kidding when I say that at every dinner after every holiday, every charity gala I got dragged to, his name was floating the air like their favorite fragrance. I didn't realize then that he'd already carved out a space for himself in their family's future plans, including a spot next to Emily. I ignored the sign for years. When Emily started comparing my apartment to Tyler's fully furnished downtown loft, I shrugged it off. When she teased me about my old truck, I laughed with her. When she said her family worried we lived in different worlds, I told myself she didn't mean it. But the real cracks formed when she stopped showing up to my job sites with iced coffee and started attending industry events where Tyler just happened to be speaking or hosting or somehow involved. She came home glowing after those nights, energized, buzzing, alive in a way I hadn't seen in a while. And yeah, I guess deep down I knew. But you don't abandon a 5-year bond over discomfort. You hope it's a phase. You hope love is enough. Turns out it isn't. The breakup happened in her family's giant marble foyer after another dinner where I'd been seated with the teenage cousins while Tyler sat with the adults discussing expansion strategies and quarterly projections. Emily pulled me aside, voice steady as if she'd practiced every word. She said she couldn't do it anymore, that her family would never accept my background, that she needed someone aligned with her world, that she and Tyler had developed an emotional connection. Emotional connection. What a pretty phrase for betrayal. What made it worse? 3 days earlier I had bought the ring. 6 months of overtime shifts. Every weekend spent working extra hours. I'd hidden the ring in a sock in my dresser because I wanted the proposal to be perfect. And now the ring was just a symbol of how foolish I'd been. I didn't yell, didn't beg, didn't collapse. Something inside me just shut off. I walked out of that mansion and never looked back, not even once. For a while after, I felt like a ghost, moving, working, sleeping, but not really breathing. But then something in me hardened, or maybe it awakened. I started taking bigger projects, ones I'd been too intimidated to bid on before. I enrolled in night classes at UNM to sharpen my project management skills. I hired more workers, bought better equipment, won a municipal contract that put my company on the map. And somewhere along the way, the hurt turned into fuel. My days stopped revolving around what I lost and started revolving around what I could build. I bought a small fixer-upper house in an older neighborhood and renovated every inch myself. I joined a cycling group, started learning Spanish from the crews I worked with, became someone I wouldn't have recognized 2 years prior. Meanwhile, Emily's perfect new life was unraveling like a cheap sweater. Word spreads fast in wealthy circles, especially when the gossip is explosive. Tyler turned out to be exactly the kind of man her parents refused to see, reckless, entitled, addicted to gambling and thrill chasing. He burned through money like oxygen, bought cars he never drove, investments he didn't understand, vacations he couldn't afford even with their family's wealth. And he cheated, openly, carelessly, more than once. When the credit statements came in showing escort services, her parents nearly imploded. Their golden boy had become their financial sinkhole. Their dynasty merger turned into a cautionary tale. And then, 8 months into her unraveling marriage, Emily reached out to me, first with blocked numbers and vague messages, then with long emails. Then, when I ignored those, she began showing up at my construction sites. Imagine wearing a hard hat and trying to coordinate concrete pours while your ex sobs near machinery about making the worst mistake of her life. My workers didn't know where to look. Hell, I didn't either. I remained polite, calm, detached, but inside, there was nothing left to give her. No love, no anger, just emptiness. She wasn't part of my story anymore. Her mother visited me next. She arrived at my house in a luxury SUV and begged, really, that I consider taking Emily back. They'd give me a role in their company, a salary beyond anything I'd imagine, a chance to reshape the future together. It was wild how quickly people who once pitied you start groveling when they realize you no longer need them. I told her no, a final, immovable no. Then my lawyer sent a cease and desist because the calls kept coming. And then came the day that felt like a full circle moment. My company won the contract to build a new civic center. Huge project. Life-changing. We held a groundbreaking ceremony with the mayor and city officials. That day, for the first time in my life, I felt like everything I had fought for, every long night, every heartbreak, every sacrifice was worth it. And that was the exact moment Emily showed up again. Thinner, exhausted, eyes red. She begged, publicly, loudly, for another chance. She confessed everything. The cheating, the gambling, the financial mess, the divorce, the humiliation. Everyone went silent. I listened. I waited. And then I told her the truth. You made your choice. And I made mine. I'm not angry. I'm just done. I walked away. This time she was the one watching a future crumble. Weeks later, I won a statewide engineering award. My name was in business journals. And Emily's family? Their clinic started selling off properties to cover Tyler's disasters. Their reputation, once spotless, was now tangled with lawsuits, debt, and scandal. The same people who once called me not enough ended up begging for someone like me. The irony isn't lost on me. So here's the ending, the real ending. I thought losing Emily would ruin me. Instead, it rebuilt me. I thought I needed her world to feel worthy. Turns out all I needed was a chance to build a world of my own. And I did. Without them. Without money. Without pedigree. Just grit and peace. The kind that comes from finally knowing you were never the one who wasn't enough. They were.